AppSec meets sales strategy. This is not your typical security podcast, but a glimpse into how sales work in AppSec. As security practitioners, we must practice empathy. This is our chance. We're unpacking the OWASP Top 10, not for vulnerabilities, but for what drives successful AppSec sales. From knowing your customer's go-live date to understanding their SLOs, MBOs, and the full stakeholder map, we'll explore how empathy, execution, and community participation make or break success. We'll talk about living documents, trusted partners, and why your current deployments are the blueprint for future wins.
Today's episode is brought to you by Security Journey. Our education platform teaches valuable secure coding skills based on real-world vulnerabilities and threats, including OWASP Top 10. Learn more at securityjourney.com.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Application Security Podcast. This is Chris Romeo. I am a VP now at Security Compass after selling Davici and co-host of, the best application security podcast on the planet, which has no research behind it, by the way. That's just completely my statement I'm making here. Joined as always by my co-host, Robert. Robert, how's it going?
Good, Chris. Yeah, Robert Hurlbut, Principal Product Security Architect and Threat Modeling Trainer at Torion. And congrats on the new role, Chris, and the sale and everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a busy time, but that's a story for a whole other podcast. When I start my How to Sell a Company podcast, we'll get into that. So, joined by Sean Varga. And Sean has had, I'm aware of a number of different roles in sales across different application security companies. And I like the opportunity to talk about something sales related because sales often gets a bad rap in our space. And having founded two companies, I've built sales teams and know kind of how the sales process works. But before we get into that, Sean, we always ask people their security origin story. So walk us through where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. It's so good to see you both. And again, congrats, Chris, on the acquisition. The origin story is pretty simple, I guess, from the sense that I graduated from college in 2009, right after the crash. And around 2007, I always wanted to be in sales, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But I have to give kudos to my dad. In 2007, when I was trying to figure out what type of profession I would have or what specific domain I'd work in, he said, cybersecurity really seems to be a huge problem. And this is 2007. He's like, everything that I'm hearing, my dad's always been in the IT world, particularly CRM sales. It's just like something's going on in security. He's like, I think you'd really enjoy it. It's very technical. It's very interesting. And his recommendation was to start at RSA Security. At the time, they were the biggest name in the world. They had just been acquired, or around that time, been acquired by EMC. And so he said, hey, that's a place I would go. I lived in Massachusetts. They were in Massachusetts. It was a no-brainer. And lucky enough, through a bunch of hard work and grit, went through an interview process and started there. And I did get a little bit into application or virtualization, capacity planning, and monitoring early in my career after RSA. But not too long after that, I got into application security at Veracode during just wonderful days with wonderful people. This would be about 10 years ago that I started. And I just caught the AppSec bug. It's a really hard, challenging, fun thing to dive into every day, and in it ever since. So happy to provide other context, but that's kind of how I got into AppSec, if you will.
Cool. So we're going to get into talking about some of the things that you're thinking about as far as the best, we'll call them best practices in AppSec sales. Something, and I'll let Robert kick that off in a second, but something that you shared with us kind of in our pre-show process was about your first and only customer return in Veracode. So I'm curious just to get some perspective on this story.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking about that. So in like the top 10 best practices for application security sales, one of them we'll talk about is a living document. And so particularly when I was at Veracode, I was working with an organization where they were looking for static and SCA for, I think it was like 10 applications. And we had all the application languages correct. We had their infrastructure correct, but we did not have their operating system correct. We did not know it. And we did not support, I think it was like 7 of the applications. And application security is just so complex. You might have support for the language, you might have support for the frameworks, but maybe you don't have support. This is particular to Veracode, and particularly, a long time ago, 9 years ago, they didn't support that OS at the time. And after the purchase and they started to deploy, they've determined, oh, this doesn't work on majority of the applications we need to scan. And they end up doing a return, my only return in life. And obviously I wanted to, die when it happened. It was, for me, really crushing. And when I went to our finance team, Veracode was a very big operation then. I went to my finance team and said, hey, this is the situation. They're like, oh, no big deal. We live in a complex world. These things are going to happen. Not the end of the world. This is how we do it. And that something I just will never forget. It's really important to be very detailed oriented when you're talking to your customers in application security, because there's just so many things you have to get right so that the application security solution can work throughout the enterprise, if you will.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, like I said, we're going to dive into this topic today. Oh, you're calling it an OWASP top 10, but essentially it's a top 10 of AppSec sales, and really, as Chris mentioned, characteristics or attributes of really good approaches or thoughts about AppSec sales. Let's start with number 1 and go down the list. But the first one you note is empathy. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate from my time at Veracode and at RSA Security is to learn how difficult not just application security is, but application development as a whole. Chris Wysopal, from one of the co-founders of Veracode, always said, Sean, application development is an art and a science. And to write just performant and quality code alone is very hard, let alone secure code. And as I talked about earlier with that return at Veracode, their job is very hard. And when you dive into your first role at a AppSec vendor and you're talking to customers and you're talking to an AppSec leader, you can just see the pain on their face, right? They're trying to help developers secure their applications, and that's always at odds with application development trying to release new features. And it's the job of developers is trying to write performant and quality code. It's just very hard, and trying to teach them about all of the security implications is just even harder. So you have to have empathy, not just for the AppSec leaders or who have this very hard job, but you have to have empathy for the developers that are trying to write performant code and get it out the door as soon as possible, and empathy for the app dev leaders and DevOps and just everybody in that scenario. It's not easy. It's why for anyone working at a software vendor, you're always wanting more features faster, and we need to deliver them secure too. So hopefully that is a helpful answer.
I guess I want to ask a kind of another question on this single point, because I'm curious. I mentioned kind of in my preamble that often salespeople in general are seen from a negative perspective. I'm just going to throw the cards on the table, right? There's no reason to be anything but transparent, right? Like, people tend to think of salespeople coming my direction, or they're messaging me on LinkedIn or whatever. Like, how do you maintain empathy when we have folks in our industry who are not pro salespeople? How do you keep that? How do you keep that same attitude?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. It's been my observation in the 15 years I've been doing this, 16, whatever it might have been, is that no matter if it's an AppSec leader or a CISO or a CIO, I've actually observed that most people are getting nicer. And I think the world is, if you go back to when we could actually print words and we could start to read and get the word out there on different information, just the transparency we're seeing and everyone is listening to podcasts like this and really improving upon themselves. And those that brought a negative tone, an angry tone out of the blue and just decided to have their first interaction in just with a negative light and assume, judge a book by its cover. I just don't really see those that much. Yeah, of course you run into somebody that might have had a bad day. You never know what somebody's dealing with, right? They could have a really bad personal situation happen to them recently. But for the most part, I mean, I find most people are really nice. And I enjoy when somebody's, rude, right? It's when you're doing something very hard, if someone's not trying to partner with you and be open and honest and transparent, I can't help them. We'll never be successful. So it's an easy way to kind of disqualify the situation is, they say you don't want to bring on a bad customer. And so most people are nice and somebody's cranky, kind of disqualifies them out, if you will.
Yeah. And I think some of the way people buy now has drastically changed in the last 10 years. People are doing so much research in advance. I feel like by the time they get to the sales process, they kind of have their mind partially made up, at least that they need to do something. Maybe they haven't chosen their vendor. Maybe they've got a couple of different vendors that they're looking at, but it's not like you're catching people very early where they're like, I don't even know if I have this problem. Like people are like, hey, I know I have this problem. I need a solution in this space. So now I'm going to go talk to a couple of different vendors about what they could offer me. And in that they're already coming at this from a more positive perspective than maybe they were 10, 15 years ago, where it was more of you had to kind of convince them that they had the problem and then get them to the way, that they needed a solution to that problem.
Completely agree. No, I think you're pulling at a really important theme is a lot of buyers or practitioners have already done their research. They're coming with a positive light, like they've chosen us. Or if it's through cold means, if I'm able to reach out to an AppSec practitioner and my messaging resonates with them, the messaging I sent them is good and they'll go into our website or they'll go into different, chats they have with other AppSec practitioners and they'll do their research and they'll come and they'll say, yes, I definitely want to talk to you. So I agree.
Okay. Let's take a look at the second point. Success lives and dies with your customers. Yeah. Let's dive into that one a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's an important one. And that's why I put it at number 2 is as we talked about AppSec being so complex and so hard and really has been looked at as a blocker to accelerating new features. If you have an hypothesis that you've created a solution that can solve people's needs and you have customers purchase, you have to then have them succeed and deploy the solution how you think it should be deployed and hit those metrics, those success metrics that you use to measure if this is reducing risk, better managing risk. And so one of the things I learned earlier in my career is that you have to treat the AppSec community with utmost respect, because if you don't treat them well and do right by them, the word will get out very quickly that you're not a vendor to work with, you're not a person to work with. And so you have to get these few customers that you first land, get them successful, listen to them intently, deal with them on a day-to-day basis, get them successful. And then that will prove your hypothesis, which then you can take to new companies and say, hey, we helped XYZ company do this. This is what we're good at. Can we help you here? Do you have the same problem? And have those proof points. If a AppSec company just goes out and churns through all their customers and everybody hates it and never hits their goals and just continues to move on, you'll first of all, you'll run out of customers and everybody will hear, hey, I don't think anybody's deployed this successfully. So it's really important to focus on your customers.
Yeah, and I was smiling when you were sharing that because you're 100% spot on. Like AppSec practitioners, we have back channel communications. We get together in different forums, and you mentioned communities and things like that. But yeah, we do talk behind the scenes about what we experience with particular vendors, and I've seen people get people definitely will share, hey, this is somebody who's not, this is not a vendor you want to work with, and that's going to be a really tough hurdle to clear in the future when the practitioner space is hearing that, oh, this is a solution that has a lot of risk for you. Because face it, people are, when they buy something, they're often they're attaching their name to the project, which means their future career trajectory is tied to the success of what you're describing, success of the customer. And so, yeah, I see that as something that I've seen very often. So curious about this next one. Show me who deployed your solution successfully, and I'll show you your future customers.
Exactly. So every company I've been to be successful, obviously I'm in sales. I have to be successful. I have to drive successful new customers for the company. I don't guess, right? I don't read marketing literature or anything like that. I just look at, okay, who's bought us, who likes us, who's hit their goals, who's renewed, who's expanded their usage. And it's important. AppSec, there are so many disciplines. There's manual intervention, bug bounties, MPT. There's scanning, there's training, there's threat modeling. Everyone tends to have their particular space. And so you need to look at, okay, who purchased? What vertical are they in? Is it financial services? Is it telecom? Is it software companies selling to big banks? What size companies are there? Do you typically sign on 1,000 employee software companies? Are you just signing on the JPMCs of the world? You will see that ideal customer profile, who buys you, succeeds with you, and expands with you. And that's where you should spend your time. If big financials are buying you, you should go talk to other big financials. If it's, mid-market manufacturing and retail companies, that's who you should go talk to. And that's what I think is really important, really selling anything, but in particularly with AppSec, because it is so particular, you need to know where you're having success and then focus on the other vendors that do the same thing, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I have kind of a different perspective on this that fits in the same words that you shared, though. Somebody who deployed your solution, I'll show you your future customers. Had the experience, and maybe Sean, you've seen this as well, where have a new customer come in, buys the product, and then in AppSec, people tend to move around a lot. And so then they go to the next company and then they call up and say, hey, I just moved over to Acme Corporation. Let's chat. Like, those are some of the best relationships from a sales perspective, because they bought into the product enough to say, not only did I buy it at the first company where you met me, but I'm bringing it. So he becomes part of their suite of products as they move around. And so I've had that happen a couple of times, and it's a really powerful thing to have that type of reputation for the product, that people are willing to take it with them and bring it into their next ventures along the way.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I think it's probably the nicest kind of compliment you can have is when someone in a new organization, they don't know the politics, they don't really know much. And when they can say, nope, I can depend on Chris, it's huge. And we had that recently at Psycho, where somebody moved to a new company, and same thing. It was, I'm like, that is a great signal. So yeah, no, I'm passionate about ideal customer profile and focusing your time properly, because that's how I think being a good salesperson is as I get older, my title grows and I get more exposure. I'm starting to get a lot of sales emails, which is interesting for all different types of services. And the one thing that really bothers me, and I work very hard on this in my outreach, is when someone contacts me that has nothing to do with my role. Like it's clearly RevOps or the ultimate sales leader here. And that's what I work very hard. And when I do outreaches, I don't contact GRC folks or network security, and no one that would ever care about application security. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and you hit on something that is part of the frustration, right? That a lot of people have with the sales profession, especially in the tech space, is there's just a lot of sales folks that will go outbound and just plaster. They don't do any research into who they're messaging to. They just send the same message 500 times over per day, hoping to get the 0.02% hit rate or whatever they're going to get from completely cold outreach. And so, yeah, I mean, those are the ones that are the most annoying. But I also appreciate when I get somebody who's obviously researched what I'm doing at the moment and actually has a legitimate thing that I might be able to use. Like those are the powerful ones. And so, yeah, kudos for doing your research there and not just spraying everybody you can in the AppSec industry, hoping something sticks, right? And that's part of the new way people buy. People don't want to be hit up, with something cold that has nothing to do with their world. Occasionally, you catch somebody on the right day where they just had an epiphany. This is the thing I need, but more than likely, they're not. They're going to be annoyed by just a blast, message that comes to them that's not specific to their problems.
Yeah, no, and Chris, you kind of mentioned something. If you're cool with it, I'd love to jump into number 4, the living document.
Sure.
Because you mentioned something about preparation and whatnot. So when I was at Secure Code Warrior about 6 years ago, I had this epiphany. My parents we originally are from Connecticut. My dad got a new job when I was eight years old. We moved to Massachusetts when I was 10, and they were lucky enough to design and build a modest home in Massachusetts. And so I was there as an 8-year-old, being annoying, playing with my toys, asking when we could leave when they were with the architect going over plans. And I grew up, my parents spending every weekend watching this old house. So they couldn't be more excited. And they were in the plans like, oh no, let's make this bigger. Let's make this smaller. No, the door needs to be here. And I was working one day and I was like, you are managing so many critical data points in an AppSec project that you need like a blueprint. It needs to be living because you're always getting more and new information from your customer interactions, whether it's when you're talking to a company for the first time and you're taking them through some sort of evaluation process, or as a customer. They're both important. So I've came up with this concept of living document that I'm extremely passionate about, and I bring the concept to wherever I go. And the team at SciCode's been awesome to use it, which is you have these specific data points that you need to get right. What languages and frameworks do you write in today? What SCMs, what multiple SCMs? Are they on-prem? Are they in the cloud? Are they self-hosted? Are you using a CMDB? Is it ServiceNow? What is your ticketing system? There's just an immense amount of questions to ask. And you need to have this document that you bring up and you share your screen, and it manages all these things. When's your project go live date? Who are all the stakeholders? Where is everybody located? So when we schedule meetings, we're friendly to someone that's in California or the UK or wherever it might be. And my experience with using it for the first time 6 years ago and sharing my screen and showing them as they say things, here are my pains. This is how I'm going to measure success, right? These are the outcomes. These are my CISO's goals for the year. As I'm typing, as they're talking, 2 incredible things happen. One is they're like, wow, a sales rep is actually listening to me. What a concept. And 2, they kind of have this like physical reaction where they go, it's like they hired a project manager that's taking down all these data points and giving it back to them and say, hey, I got you. I'm taking everything you're saying and I'm going to be the concierge of this process and make sure I have this all project managed out. And so you have it, and then you can give that to them, and you just win so many friends. I mean, I was on a call with a Fortune 500 this morning, and I had my living document up, and hey, how many SCMs? Oh, you have like 1 million. Good to know. And you even have some subversion out there. Let me put that right. That note about subversion. It's important that I take it down because later on, that might come back to bite us, right? Maybe you need support. Hey, everything is aligned. The 1,000 points that we need on the technical requirements is aligned. It's that subversion it's that last little piece. If I didn't write it down and have it in that living document, then I would forget. I mean, how do you remember? I don't remember anything these days. I mean, with 3 little kids and a lot going on, you have to write these things down, and it's 1,000 times harder for the people that you're selling to. So that I live and die. After empathy, the living document is everything. And number 5, it has that go live date, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Bob Brennan, the former CEO of Veracode, love that guy. He said, Sean, you know what well, not to me. He said this to the entire company. We sell data and exercise. That's what application security is. We're selling a process. And once you get past understanding what a company's technical requirements are and meeting those in a POV, if they get to the point where they say, yes, you technically meet our requirements, and yes, you meet our licensing and cost for our project, you got to fit into when they actually have time to deploy it. Mm. So regardless of meeting all these different milestones in the milestone-driven process, one of my favorite questions to ask from the first call is, all right, Chris, let's say you find a solution that meets your needs, any solution in the world. When would you actually want to and have the time to go live with it? Start the subscription. Most everything is a SaaS subscription these days. And once you get that date, that tells you everything, because they won't do anything until they can actually deploy it. So they might start a project, it's June, whatever, today, right now with you. But if they can't actually deploy June of next year, then that tells you everything about the project. So it's a really important thing. And it's their timeline. It's not yours. I'm not doing some sales tactic. Hey, if you get it this month, half off, whatever nonsense is. You told me from the beginning, Chris, that you need to go live with this solution because of a renewal date or whatever compelling event. That's their date. And you have that right there, and it shows up, and next call you go, we got to pull that back. We got to do it sooner, or we got to push it out. Just makes your life so much easier. And again, you built so much credibility and respect with AppSec leaders when you show how detailed oriented you are. So I'm jumping ahead.
You're
getting in my flow.
You're describing, in my mind, what is a consultative approach to sales, which is in all of my companies. That's what I've done. That's what we've done with various sales team members. Is if you go, nobody wants somebody that's going in, for the quick close or no, that doesn't work in based on the things you're describing. These are complicated technical projects. But I think that's really, that is one of the hidden nuggets that you shared from this conversation, is by asking that question up front, you have a great idea for what their success looks like. But also, what does their process look like? If they're saying we need to go live on June 30th of 2026, they're not buying this quarter. It's not going to happen. It's just, nobody's buying a year. I'll just buy it and have it ready in case something happens. No, they're going to buy in the first quarter of 2026 to give you some predictability. But I love that consultative approach, and that's what I've tried to do and tried to instill in salespeople that I've worked with. It's like, care about the success of the people on the other side, which it feeds back into empathy, as you described it there. Like, having their goal in mind is really what people want.
Yeah.
Because they don't care about sales targets and things like that are in the salesperson's world. They care about, help me be successful in this thing that I'm trying to partner with you. So it's consultative and partner based or partnership based, because there's a shared goal now that you have as the salesperson to help me get to my solution that I need on June 30th of next year. I think that's a powerful way to approach it.
Appreciate it. No, and it's just things I picked up along the way. It's something we use the Secure Code Warrior a lot. And I've just taken it, from that to SciCode, and we really embraced that. So no, I appreciate it. And all credit goes to everybody I've worked for. So that's excellent.
Yeah. So then we get to know your solution. Wait, you have to actually know the thing that you're selling. I can't just show up on the demo and go, hey, why don't you drive, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect? You just drive, see what you can find. I'll just sit back and take notes.
No, 100%. The reason why I didn't have this is, it's obvious. And those that are in AppSec, it's obvious that you have to be very technical, right? I hear that a lot is you need to be a technical rep. You need to really know how your solution works. And I put it at 6 because I don't care how smart you are. It takes a while to understand what your solution is actually good at and what to be talking about. See, those first couple months you're at a company, you really have to rely on your solution architect. But as time goes on, one of the things I always say, when you join an AppSec company, you're gonna sales reps. I'm a crazy person when it comes to looking at data and like what good looks like and how do you track towards success. If an AppSec vendor does not give a new rep a current customer, particularly if you're selling to larger enterprises, to learn what the customer uses and how is it going, what's working well, and to get that customer story, they usually flame out. You need that customer so you can hear on the calls where you're not necessarily doing much. Usually it's customer success manager, solution architect are handling the rollout of the customer. But just to hear like, okay, I'm going to be turning on pull request blocking and this is how it works. And this is the capabilities. Oh, and they really like that. That's good. Oh, they don't want to do this now because that doesn't make sense. They want to start with secrets or it's so critical. So you build it up over time but you ultimately need to know your solution's value prop and who's it made for, who's it work really well for. And it's the only way you can effectively sell it because people, sniff out immediately that you have no idea what you're talking about.
Let's take a look at number 7. Understand AppSec SLOs, SLAs, and MBOs.
Yeah. So one of the things that I picked up over the last couple of years is, especially because I've been in the scanning space for the last couple of years, is understanding, what are your service level objectives? Are you fixing criticals in 15 days, 30 days? What have you agreed to? Because one of those living document questions is, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, have you come to agreement with your CIO, CTO, at least on your P1 apps? When are you going to fix a particular critical high severity vulnerability, right? And it tells you a lot on if the SLOs are created and agreed on, or maybe they're not there yet, which is completely fine because AppSec is still very new to a lot of organizations. But that's ultimately what you're aligning to. And it's very telling both ways if one exists or if one doesn't exist already. If one doesn't exist, then you have to go out and say, I'm so excited that you're looking at our AppSec testing tool today at our application security solution. We have to get the head of DevOps, the CIO, CTO, all those that own application development. We got to get on the same page. And what's going to be the SLO? What are we going to agree? What are you going to fix? Right? Because the solution can be the best solution in the world with no false positives, the most prioritization and built into everybody's developer processes. But if the devs haven't been told by their leaders when they should fix, then nothing matters. So it's really critical to dig into that. And then the other thing is MBOs, right? Managed by objective. How are AppSec people goaled, right? What are they driving towards? Because you might have some shiny solution that could fix a lot of their problems. But if you aren't aligned to what they're being managed on, what their goal is, hey, I need to remove all critical secrets by the end of the year, or put in a pre-commit hook to block secrets from ever getting into ESCM. You have to just be aligned to it because obviously they'll be driving to what their goals are. I mean, I have goals, everybody has goals, and that's what matters a lot.
Mm-hmm. Let's we can jump over the understand all stakeholders, 'cause I think we talked about that in the context of the living document. But how about participate in security community? This is not something that I normally hear AEs pushing, is the need to participate in security community. So what's the value that's created there?
Yeah, so I definitely a broken record on Secure Code Warrior. I just had such a wonderful experience there when I was there years ago for 4 years. And again, just listening to the success before, one of the co-founders, Jap, an amazing human being, said, because Secure Code Warrior was an Australian-based company, we just went to OWASP chapters and ran secure coding tournaments. People loved the experience and they reached out and said, we need this for our environment, right? And so that's when I started to get the OWASP chapters, and I hear about DevOps days and B-sides, and there's so many other wonderful security groups out there that, outside of those that I mentioned, they tend to be a little bit more network security, GRC, other things outside of application security. But I did a presentation earlier for Psycode at our last QBR. We call it grassroots, and talking about the importance of outreach to your communities and being part of it and interacting it. And when I was doing some Googling and trying to figure out how to talk about this, when something's very hard in life, it tends to create communities. So AppSec, my contention is, because it's so hard, that's why there's these really lively security groups tailored to that world. OWASP, which is OG, been around forever. There's DevOps days, B-sides. And so that's where your practitioners are. Don't be a boisterous vendor that's trying to do demos. That's completely against everything that they stand for. But just go and start to listen, see what people are talking about, learn, meet people in your community, and just be involved. And it's a great way to, meet those that might be able to benefit from your solution. And that's the wonderful thing about, AppSec is so hard, right? It's not like cloud security, find an open port, close a port, or network security. It's very involved, and you just have to live it. Somebody told me at RSA in my early days is, Sean, you just have to decide to be fully committed to what you're doing to be successful. And at the time, as a idiot 21-year-olds that wasn't necessarily all focused on work, it didn't hit me then, but it resonated years later. I'm like, oh, you have to be fully committed. And that's why I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's definitely important to be a part of the community, because running an OWASP chapter for a number of years, there was a pattern of folks that were AEs, they'd kind of come in for one meeting and then you'd never see them again. But they'd also make the rounds around, hey, I'm so-and-so from, this is my company, here's my business card. That's not how you be successful in the community as a salesperson. Being successful means becoming part of the community. So you're at the events for a period of time, and people get to know you, and then who knows, somebody might have a question about the technology that you have. If you only show up for one night, they're more than likely going to not engage with you and talk about the things that you're doing in your company. But if you become part of that community where you're there for a period of time, and now you're just another member of the community, it's just a different relationship. And I've seen it happen a number of times.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. So no, it's been awesome. And there's so much fun, right? Pre-COVID, when I was running Secure Code Warrior tournaments at different OWASP chapters across the Eastern US, it was just so much fun. And I saw the power, the value to, we ran one, shout out to Laura Diener, the CISO now at DTCC. She was a CISO at the time at S&P Global, and we wanted to run a OWASP tournament at OWASP New York City, and we needed a venue. And at the time I was talking to S&P Global, and I was like, hey, you have this wonderful office. I assume you have office space. Would you host OWASP New York and do this event? And she's like, yeah, that's the biggest no-brainer in the world. I support the community. That matters a lot to me. And it's recruiting. I get to pull in a bunch of practitioners into, the world of S&P that I love, and that's the value of it. So I think that's one of the key points to foster in these groups. So it's a big deal.
Sort of wrap up the list. You have number 10, partners, crossing the chasm.
Yeah. So partners are extremely important. And if you ever see my LinkedIn posts, I cannot spell. I need to like super spell check. So I don't know if that's the right way to spell chasm, but I don't know if anybody's out there's read the book Crossing the Chasm, but it talks about the concept of, early adopters and innovators, and then there's laggards and things of that nature. And so when you're looking at a cohort of buyers in any market, those that are innovators and early adopters, they're mostly likely going to find you. They're searching somebody out. Hey, I've got this issue. I'm going to Google. I don't care about taking on a new vendor that might not be, a giant size company, but if they're good people doing work that having with a solution that works, I'm okay with reaching out to them. There's a huge chunk of the market, and it's nothing against them, that say, I need a Robert, I need a Chris to lean on as a third party, as a partner to help me. I've got AppSec issues, or I found it. Like I talked to a company recently that's in the concrete business that the CIO is like, Sean, I have like 300 developers. I have no idea where they came from. It's everybody's got developers today, right? And partners are such a great way to get an all-encompassing, trustworthy approach to like, how do I address this layer, right? So it's really, really important. I can only reach out to myself in cold outreach and community outreach to maybe 50% of the market. It's probably being generous. The rest of the market is talking to the Guidepoint Securities, the WWTs, Optives, the Trace 3s, the Heads, the companies, go on and on. And all of those companies I mentioned, they all have amazing AppSec consultant practices. We were lucky at Psycode to bring in Jimmy Zhu, who ran Trace 3's global AppSec, APISec, CloudSec practice for a bunch of years. And really earning the trust of these AppSec consultants is so important. I just was talking to one of the partners a couple hours before this podcast, and they were giving the background of why they were able to introduce us to this major company. And they're like, oh yeah, our head of AppSec thoroughly tested you and is blown away by its results. And that is so critical, that not only that you deal with partners because they're in the ear of people that you want to work with, but it's specifically working with those AppSec leaders, because the sales reps at partners that I mentioned, they are so busy. And particularly right now, they're getting texted by every person in the world. And they, quite honestly, everybody can buy CrowdStrike. You have a library, you could probably find a use for CrowdStrike, right? Not everybody has a sophisticated SDLC where they're thinking about, how do I start commenting on PRs and doing pre-commit hooks and everything else? And so they're going to be very close to the vendors that they can sell at any company, no matter if it's a dentist chain or JPMC. And the way you really get into these partners is proving your technology to these AppSec leaders. So for a AppSec salesperson, right, a vendor to be successful, it can't just be a lone wolf. I'm going to cold outreach, and I don't need other people's help. You need the help, and we embrace that. And we embrace it here at Psycode, which is awesome. But partners are just critical. And I love them, right? They're really, really interesting, good, very experienced practitioners.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a second to think about your key takeaway, because I'm going to share mine first, which I don't normally do. But I think it's important because we're primarily addressing an AppSec audience, the people that listen to this podcast. And so the key takeaway that I want to share with our audience here is that salespeople are people too. They have families, they have children. They're real people behind the scenes, and it's you don't have to. We don't have to live in the days of old where salespeople are our opposition. Sean took us through a number of different scenarios of the living document and thinking about the success of the customer, understanding the goals and the service level optimizations and SLAs and all these things. And so that's my key takeaway that I knew that already, but I'm sharing it for our audience sake, just to put it out there, because these are salespeople are real people too. If you don't need their solution and somebody happens to reach out to you, just tell them, go away, leave me alone. They'll leave you alone. They're smart in that way. But John, how about you? What's your key takeaway that you want to leave the audience with?
For me, it's just embrace the community. I think is the biggest thing is, live your truth. First of all, in life is you got to understand what motivates you, right? And once you understand what motivates you and where your happy place is then dive in, right? AppSec. I love AppSec. I could never be a dentist. I couldn't wake up every day and just do 5 sets of cavities every day. Like just the same thing. I would lose my mind.
That's half a Mercedes. You just described half a Mercedes Benz right there. You do 5 cavities, but I'm okay. I'm joking.
Right? And AppSec, every day is a new day. It's a new challenge. You never know what's going to happen. And it just works your brain. It's critical thinking. And so I would say for those that enjoy AppSec, just lean into it, enjoy it, understand each day is going to be a challenge and be prepared for it and plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Awesome. Well, Sean, thanks for sharing the OWASP top 10 for AppSec Sales. I think it's been very valuable for folks who are primarily not going to be sales folks, but they get a perspective about, what are good sales folks doing from a process perspective, and they'll be able to detect when somebody really has their best interest in mind now that they have this perspective. So thanks for sharing that with the audience, and we just appreciate having you on as a guest.
No, it's been wonderful. It's been an honor. So this is great.